My name is Miguel Myers. Welcome to My Horror Confessional, where every week I will have a guest come on and talk about one classic horror movie that they haven't seen and why. We'll discuss the movie, the actors, and probably get off topic quite a bit. Once I believe that they have properly atoned, I will absolve them of their horror movie sin. Today, I have my good friend Stanley. Hey, Stanley, how's it going?
Hello, Miguel. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So, what we do here typically is I ask all my guests what their introduction to horror was. Um, did you start horror at an early age? Did your parents not want you to watch horror? Did you read horror novels, comic books, all that stuff? So, where did it start with you?
Yeah. So, my introduction to horror was actually just watching horror movies as a kid, like maybe too early, like 9 or 10. The examples that I bring up the most is like watching like Child's Play, like any of the Child's Play movies that would come on TV, but like the heavily edited versions, and Final Destination. That kind of was playing on TV a lot when I was growing up for some reason. So I was watching them and was too scared and would change the channel or just turn off the TV. I was way too young to watch that.
Was it the first Final Destination?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. Like the thing that I remember the most was the plane crash, like exploding, and that freaked me out so much. Like as a kid, I was like, "What is?" And then also like some of the death scenes, but which were like still very heavily edited, but like they still showed like a lot of violence. With the if you've seen the movie, the one with the teacher with her the glass going into her neck, and
Yeah,
then when
yeah.
she takes it out, then yeah, that was very scarring.
So the Child's Play, was it part one that you started watching, or?
I have no idea because I don't keep count when I was a kid like which Child's Play. I didn't even know there were sequels, but
Yeah,
yeah, it was just the Child's Play doll scared
gotcha.
like the hell out of me.
How do you
Uh,
feel about like a Chucky now? If you see like a real life Chucky,
oh, I'm fine with it. Yeah,
okay,
I'm not like scared at all. And then when I rewatch some of the movies, I haven't actually seen the first one. I don't think all the way through,
okay,
but it doesn't scare me as much
okay,
anymore.
okay. And how about like reading? Like, did you read any? A lot of people's introductions, like Christopher Pike or Stephen King or anything like
Hmm.
that.
No, I don't. I don't read a lot in general, and growing up, unless it's like a school, thing that I have to do, I don't read that many books, and I just watch a lot of TV and movies growing up, and like for TV shows, something like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I watched growing up. I don't know if that counts as horror, but that's something
Yeah, that's horror. Yeah,
yeah, I religiously watched, and even The Ring scared like gave me nightmares for a week. Yeah.
I could never get into Buffy because I don't like the formulaic
Mm.
monster of the week
Monster of the Week,
thing.
yeah.
I can't get into it. But I've heard almost everybody that I met who likes horror does love Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The TV
Yeah.
show, I mean, the movie I loved.
Yeah, I never watched the movie until like maybe like the past 5 years,
Okay.
the time that they showed it during Terror Tuesday. Um, and that was like my first time watching it. I've always only watched the show, so it's
Okay.
kind of crazy.
How about your family life? Your parents or brothers or cousins or whatever, did they like horror or anything?
Like my parents don't watch that many movies, and they didn't really care. They didn't know anything about ratings, like MPAA ratings or anything. So me and my brother would watch a lot of like maybe inappropriate stuff growing up, like South Park. Going off topic, but like yeah. So
So
when
your
yeah,
parents, are your parents immigrants?
yeah,
The reason why I ask is because my parents are immigrants as well, and we had the same situation where we could watch whatever we wanted.
yeah,
They didn't know anything about rating
yeah. They
systems
didn't
or.
they didn't really care unless it's nudity like usual. Like parents are more concerned about sex and nudity rather than violence. So
Yeah,
we
this
watch a
guy
lot
is
of
carrying this other guy's head in a sack, but he's not having sex, so that's fine.
yeah.
That's
And
cool.
it's crazy because like when I was like a teenager and watching even more movies in theaters, I would take my mom a lot. My mom, and my brother would go to the movies a lot, and then we watch like of the movies that I show my mom. We watch a lot of horror movies as well. So like we watched like Piranha 3D, the remake in
Yeah.
theaters. It was kind of awkward, but
Is there a lot of nudity in that one? I haven't seen that one yet.
there's like yeah, there's some scenes where just like naked girls just swimming in the ocean. And it's like some
Yeah.
trashy horror movie like that. But yeah, because it's like it's like thrilling and fun to watch. So it's fun to watch with a crowd. So that's why I watch a lot of horror movies in theaters. We also watch like Snakes on a Plane and even Grindhouse, the 3 hour
The
double
Quentin
feature.
Tarantino. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, the double feature. Okay.
yeah.
Cool.
Robert Rodriguez. Yeah, that was so much fun watching that in theaters. It was like so unforgettable.
Yeah, I wish I had seen that, but at that time, I'm still kind of getting out of it. But at the time, I was like, "Fuck all new horror." I'm just watching 80s and
Yeah.
90s and like 70s, all that sort of stuff. Like around the time when all like the torture porn was coming out,
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not interested in any of this, so I just went back to the old stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like with newer horror fans or younger horror fans like me, like a lot of older horror fans, like say like Halloween or Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, are what they their favorite horror films or what they grew up watching, and then me, it's like The Ring remake, the American version, and like Final Destination.
All
Yeah,
right, all
it's
right.
kind of
Watch
some of the
yourself,
newer
Stanley.
ones.
Watch
Yeah.
yourself. What are you trying to say? Because Halloween is my favorite horror movie.
No, Halloween's great. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Speaking of slashers, that we will discuss
Yeah,
about. Yeah.
exactly. So it's a great segue. So Stanley has come on to confess that he has never seen 1981's The Burning. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's 40 years now, right? It's kind of crazy.
Yes. No. Yeah. 40. Oh my
40
God.
years, yeah. I was like counting when I was watching the movie 81, 91, 2000. 40
Oh,
years.
holy shit! I'm turning 40. No, I'm not. I was born in 81. I was born in 82. Okay, cool. I was like, wait, I'm turning 40 this year? No way. Wow. I do not smoke weed. I don't know why that came out like that. Okay, cool. Woo! I feel a lot better. So, why do you think that you haven't seen The Burning before? Are slashers not your genre?
No, I actually watch a lot of slasher movies. It's like, of all this horror subgenre, that's the one I go to the most. Um, but I was meaning to watch The Burning like maybe when I was in college, like 10 years ago. But I've always like put it off. I have like so many movies on my watch list. I kind of just like sometimes leave them there and forget about them. And then until someone brings it up again, I was like, oh, I need to watch that. And yeah, so I saw this movie on your list of potential movies to talk about, and I was like, oh, I haven't seen The Burning, and it's one I've heard good things about.
Yeah, so The Burning is one of those movies where I've seen it now maybe four times, but every
Oh,
time somebody tells me or asks me about it, I'm like, huh, I don't know if I've seen it or not. The same things happen with the Carnival of Souls. Have you ever seen Carnival of Souls? It's from like the '60s, black and white.
oh yeah.
It's a weird movie. It's very ethereal, and it's like nothing really happens, but a lot happens, and I forget the plot. This
Mm-hmm.
one, it's kind of straightforward, but for some reason, I have to like look at the poster or like look at a trailer to remember what it's about. And that poster is pretty iconic. I
It
mean,
is, yeah.
yeah. Are slashers your favorite genre? Because I'm looking at a Jaws poster in the background there,
Oh, and I'm wearing also like a music by John Carpenter T-shirt.
which is dope. Which is what?
Coincidentally,
Is it Super Yaki that did that one?
Super Yaki. Yes, I think so. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
they're a Houston clothing store that's like really great. So shout out to them.
Yeah, they got great shirts. I got one that says co-written or produced by Deborah Hill. I think you can have that one as well, don't you?
Yeah, yeah, I have that one, and maybe that's Tease Unseen.
Maybe.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right. Okay. Regardless, Deborah Hill's awesome. But what?
Yes.
So what is your genre?
Like my favorite genre
Yeah, your favorite
in
horror
horror.
genre, I should say. Like
So,
subgenre, I should say.
yeah, so I used to say slashers, because like I said earlier, that's the type of horror films I watch often.
Yeah.
But like recently or even like the past couple of years, every time I would watch a slasher movie, I would get very bored watching them because they're formulaic, and
Yeah.
I'm like, why am I watching this? Like, why am I watching this shitty slasher movie? Um, and like Yeah, so I think like slashers don't really do it for me like in the past couple of years like they used to, or maybe like I just have given them a pass, um, or just like convince myself, oh, I like slasher movies because they're kind of like junk food type of movies where like reality shows, like you just something to put on because they don't require a lot of effort. You just put it on and watch it. But like in terms of like another subgenre, I don't have one in mind. I just watch a lot of horror movies in general. I try to seek them out, even new ones. I like to watch all the new horror movies. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So I started out liking slashers, and then I kind of moved on to zombies,
yeah.
and then I kind of went back and forth between zombies and slashers. But recently, I'm really loving folk horror.
Okay,
You know,
yeah.
all that the Vivitch. Yeah, I say the Vivitch. Uh, what's
What
the
else?
Wicker Man?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Crap, I can't think of anything right now. Oh, A Field in England.
Would
Um,
Midsummer count?
Midsommar. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, that's a yeah. Oh, Blair Witch, the
Mm,
Blair Witch Project.
yeah.
Yeah, those movies are kind of creepy. And so I kind of like those a lot. But like you're right. Slashers are like when you want a burger.
Yeah.
You just want to like watch it and just not think about it.
And yeah, you don't want to turn off your brain. But like actually, now that I'm talking, like the type of horror movies that like you generally scare me is like the found footage ones. Like I know a lot of people find them annoying and also formulaic, but something that makes it like them in a realistic setting by using found footage scares me a lot. So like Paranormal Activity, that scared the hell out of me. Gave me nightmares for like a month. Like when I watched it the first time in theaters, I was like, oh, this is fine. Then when I came home and then it would like just like lay in my bed, it's quiet, and then I hear like a creak or something in the house. I'm like, what is that? That scared. Yeah, that would just like make me so paranoid. It's like, is that a ghost or
Yeah,
yeah?
found footage movies, when done right, are some of the best horror movies out there
Hmm.
because it's so visceral. You're there. I mean, the whole Rex series.
Yeah,
I think people don't like three as much, but I liked them all. They were all excellent. Well, the first one was amazing.
yeah.
Second one was great as well. There was definitely a slight decline, but as compared to other franchises, I think it's pretty high quality.
Hmm. I've only seen the first three. I haven't seen the fourth one, but I liked the three that I saw a lot. They haven't dipped in quality for me yet.
Yeah, exactly. So before we talk about The Burning, we need to talk about Cropsy. Do you know that this movie was based on the urban legend of Cropsy?
I did not. After watching the movie, I immediately went to the Wikipedia page just to read more about it, behind the
Yeah,
scenes. And it's like, oh, Cropsy is based on a real folk or like legend, fairy tale,
yeah,
whatever. Yeah,
yeah.
I never heard about it in my entire life, so it was new. Yeah, new to me.
Yeah, it was new to me because it seems like it's a Eastern United States urban legend, specifically New York.
Hmm.
But I read a little bit about it, and I actually got an article from culturalbestiary.fandom.com in case anybody wants to go on that website. I don't want to be accused of stealing anything, but they had some really good information. So Cropsy was an urban legend of Staten Island from the 1970s to the 1980s. Cropsy was attributed to the disappearances of many children until it was determined that Cropsy was an actual serial killer and kidnapper. Many of the
Wow.
legends described Cropsy as an escaped mental patient who lived at the abandoned Willowbrook Mental Institution, who would come out late at night and snatch kids off the streets. He
Hmm.
was most often described either wielding a bloody axe or a hook for a hand. Cropsy's true identity was that of Andre Rand, who was born Frank Rashan, and he was a janitor at the Willowbrook State School, and he had a total of 5 victims. He was reported to have been the last person to be seen with his child victims. Each one of them, he was the last person to be seen with them.
Hmm.
In 1988, Rand was convicted of the kidnapping and first degree murder of Jennifer Schweiger. He was sentenced to 25 years in prison, possibly getting out in 2008. However, in 2004, he was again brought to trial, this time charged with the kidnapping of Holly Ann Hughes from 23 years earlier. A jury convicted him, and he was sentenced to another 25 years. He will be eligible for parole in 2037 when he'll be 93 years old.
Ooh.
So this legend is based on him, or
Mm.
it was like concurrent, right? They don't know if there was if he was operating at the same time of the creation of the legend, but they're pretty sure he was. And one of the creepiest things I read about him was that at one point he took a bus full of children from the YMCA and kidnapped them. Basically, he took the bus to the airport and was stopped from having them get on the airport by authorities. But he had like some 2 dozen kids with him.
That's crazy.
He just like stole a bus from the YMCA. It's absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
The other thing was that there was another movie based on the Cropsey legend that came out in the same year, Madman, directed in 1981, directed by Joe Gione. They were actually operating concurrently from each other, but when the director found out how close his story was to The Burning, he decided to change it up. So because the two films resembled each other too much, he decided to halt production and rewrite the script. The idea of Cropsey was changed to the fictionalized Madman Mars, a farmer who had massacred his family and was lynched by an angry mob, whose presence is claimed to still haunt the woods near his home. They both came out in 81, but Madman changed its story a little bit. Have you seen Madman?
No, yeah. So I actually, yeah, read the behind the scenes about that too, and no, I've never even heard of it, and I added it to my watch list after watching this
Okay.
movie.
This is
But yeah.
another one that I saw over a decade ago, and I couldn't. If I saw it today, it'd be a brand new movie.
Oh yeah.
But I just thought it was funny, like it just randomly they just started making the same movie.
Yeah, like it was very coincidental.
Yeah. So The Burning came out in 1981, directed by Tony Malum and written by Malum and Harvey Weinstein. We'll get to Harvey Weinstein after we talk about the movie. And also starring Jason Alexander from Seinfeld,
Hmm.
his famous Seinfeld. Fisher Stevens, who famously did Brownface in Short Circuit.
Oh,
Do you remember? Have you ever seen Short Circuit?
I've never seen Short Circuit.
Have you heard of it? Are you familiar with
Yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's he plays an Indian person,
Mm.
an Indian man, and does the accent and everything. It's terrible.
Ooh.
And in a small role, but her first role, Holly Hunter.
Yeah, yeah. You're stealing all my notes for this movie. You're just like going through them,
I'm
saying the
sorry.
exact
I'm
same
sorry.
cast members. No, no, yeah. That's kind of crazy when I saw the casting list, and I wasn't familiar with Fisher Stevens, but like I recognized his face. Like he has like such a distinct face, and the movie that I remember him in is Awake, the Jessica Alba, Hayden Christensen like thriller in the hospital. I don't know if you've seen that,
I've
but
never even heard of it. No.
no, it's so I think it's so underrated, and I've seen that so many times. And I was like, I recognize this man from somewhere, and I looked through the casting list, and I'm like, or his credits, and I'm like, I don't recognize most of these movies. And then I saw Awake. Yeah, he's in that movie. That's the one I've seen so many times. But yeah,
Is he good in it?
yeah, I think he's good. I don't. Yeah, he's good. I don't have anything bad to say about him.
So Holly Hunter, I know the name,
Hmm.
but I couldn't place her in anything.
She is Mrs. Incredible in the Incredibles, the Pixar superhero movie.
Oh, cool. That's cool.
Because she has that thick Southern accent, or that's like
Yeah.
her distinct, feature, I guess. But she's also in The Piano, which she won an Oscar, playing like a mute person who knows how to play the piano.
Okay.
Um, and I think she was in one of the Zack Snyder Superman movies or something. She's been in a lot, like broadcast news, but I don't think any. Oh, Copycat was another like serial killer type movie that she was in with the the actress from Alien. I forgot her name.
Like the main actress who plays
Yeah,
Ripley.
yeah. What's her
Yeah.
name?
Jesus.
We're terrible.
Um,
Sigourney Weaver.
Sigourney
Yes.
Weaver. Yeah, yeah. I had it
Yeah.
first. I had it first.
No,
You heard
no.
me.
But yeah, Copycat is also great. I'm just like promoting these underrated films that I think, or underrated horror movies that I think are great and underseen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I haven't heard of or seen any of those, but I'll check them out. But what I did like is Jason Alexander's hair.
Mm,
That
yeah.
is a character in and of itself. It's so lush.
Yeah,
And like I think Seinfeld came out in '89. So you're telling me from '81 to '89, 8 years, he
he
lost
lost his hair.
all that hair. It's like wow.
Yeah, he
Like
looks so young in the movie. Like, that's him. I was like, oh, that's he used to have hair.
yeah, it's crazy.
Not to be random, but like I wanted to describe like the first few minutes of how I watched this movie. So within the movie opens up with all these credits, and it's like it opens with like a Miramax production, and Miramax is the production between the Weinstein brothers.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, that's weird. I didn't realize Miramax was back then in 1981. That's pretty early for them to start making movies. And then the rest of the credits show up, and it's like story by Harvey Weinstein, and then this other person, and then written by Bob Weinstein, his brother, which he doesn't get talked about much, but like the Weinstein name is all over this movie. I had no idea,
yeah.
and I was like, oh crap. Ugh. So that had that clouding my head like throughout the movie. It's like, oh, this is weird to watch, but yeah.
Well, written. I don't think written by Harvey Weinstein as well. I don't think Bob wrote it, but
I think Bob wrote it, and Harvey was the one who thought of the story. If you
okay.
want to double check the credits,
Let's all right. Let's take it to IMDb, folks. I'm looking
we'll see
at
who's
okay.
right.
All right, I see a screenplay. You're right. Screenplay by Peter Lawrence and Bob Weinstein, and story by
Story by
Harvey Tony. Okay, you got me. All right.
yeah. I
All right.
wrote yeah.
I'll be cutting all that out of this. How dare you?
Not to be the actually, but actually.
Yeah, Stanley has glasses, and he did the whole actually thing.
No.
So okay, let's just get the Harvey Weinstein thing out of the way,
Yeah.
because as we're talking about this, we'll see how some of the thoughts and ideas of how women were treated
Mm.
in that time, and obviously still to this day, mostly, or unfortunately, you could see there's a direct through line to like Harvey Weinstein. You know,
Yeah.
so of course, this is the first ever movie produced for Miramax, and this production, according allegedly, right, also kicked off Harvey's decades-long streak of sexual misdemeanors and
Mm.
assaults in the movie industry, when he reportedly exposed himself to a female intern and asked her for a massage. And then, so around 2017, I think, is when it came out that he had been sexually assaulting and raping actresses for those 30 years, and he was finally arrested and sentenced to 23 years in prison on March 11th, 2020. And his arrest led to the hashtag #MeToo movement that has swept the entertainment world and is doing a lot of good. Hasn't done enough, and a lot of people are still out there. Like, who's that? Army Hammer.
Mm.
Like they came out that he's basically a cannibal. So we're still finding things out like that. But
Yeah.
as we go through this movie, there's one character,
Alfred.
one character in particular who is like sexually assaulting his, I don't know, girlfriend or whatever, and she's like actively saying, back the fuck off, and he's not doing it. So I can completely understand how when you see the Harvey Weinstein name and then you see what's happening in it, you're like, oh fuck.
Yeah, like because a lot of slasher movies have those type of scenes, where like men just want to have sex, and then the women are like naked, and yeah. But like with this, knowledge in your mind, it hits different when you see like a sex scene about to happen. Then the woman's like, "No, I don't want to do this," and then the guy gets angry, and then just like lets her leave, and then yeah, it's kind of weird.
Yeah. And also, like, there's a bunch of problematic shit here because it was also edited by Jack Shoulder. He did the editing, and he went on to direct The Hidden and another movie called Nightmare on Elm Street 2. And
Hmm.
do you know the whole history behind Nightmare on Elm Street 2?
Not in particular to anything that is negative about
Okay.
Jack Shoulder.
Without getting too much into it, because we're here to talk about The
Yeah, yeah.
Burning. But on A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, the main character, played by Mark Patton,
Hmm.
and his character's name was Jesse Walsh, he comes off as a gay man. Like, have you seen part two? All right.
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
So he comes off as a gay man. Like some of the stuff that he does is seen as quote unquote gay, and his career suffered for it after it came out. For the longest time, for like 20 years after the movie came out, both the director and the writer were like, "We didn't write it like that, and we didn't direct it like that. That was Mark's character coming out." Because in
Mm-hmm.
actual life, the character or the person Mark Patton is actually gay,
Mm-hmm.
and so like his life was ruined, and the director and the writer, director Jack Shoulder,
Mm-hmm.
refused to acknowledge that they were actually going for the gay angle
Mm-hmm.
in this movie. And so Mark Patton had to like move to, because this was in the mid 80s when the AIDS epidemic was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so like he had to move, leave country because he couldn't get any more jobs, because like female actresses didn't want to do roles with him because they didn't want to kiss him if he was gay, because maybe they can get HIV or AIDS, whatever. So it's just terrible what happened to him. There's actually a great documentary on it called Scream Queen
Yeah.
that goes into it, does a lot better justice in it than I
Mm-hmm.
can to the story. But anyway, the director of that is Jack Shoulder, and he did the editing on this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like everywhere you look, it's terrible.
Yeah. And they all just started their careers with this movie.
Yeah,
who
exactly.
knew the burning would jumpstart the careers of like the three actors that we mentioned, and then these behind the scenes folks. That
Yeah,
yeah.
these terrible people.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So talking about the burning now. So we talk at the very beginning. We're at Camp Blackfoot, and there's five boy campers. They decide to frighten the caretaker, Cropsey, played by Lou David. The group heads over to his cabin with a box, and one boy goes inside, puts down the box, lights something, and walks out. They rap on the window until Cropsey wakes up and sees a wormy or maggot filled skull with lit candles in the eye sockets. This is a really cool shot.
It is.
But but where do these kids get the head?
Oh,
It's
oh
never
there you go.
addressed.
Yeah. They
They just
probably
have
made
a
it.
they have a random cadaver head.
Yeah.
Or okay,
Like a toy skull somewhere. I don't know.
yeah, okay, so that's fake. Where they get the maggots? I don't know. I've
Yeah.
never been to camp. Can you get maggots at camp willingly? It's
Who
really weird.
knows?
Um, he, Cropsey sees it, screams, and inadvertently knocks over the skull, setting the bed afire and burning a nearby gasoline can, which explodes, spreading the flames all over the cabin. Which happens all the time to me. You know, when I leave my gas can right next to where I'm sleeping. You know, it's so annoying.
Yep. I hate it when that happens.
Yeah. But the cool thing was that the special effects were done. Do you know who the special effects were done by?
Tom Savini.
Tom Savini,
Tom
yeah, the
Savini.
one
Yeah.
and only, the master.
Yeah.
And his legs were the ones that were caught on fire that we show here.
Oh.
Yeah, he did
Okay.
a lot of the stunts himself because he felt that as the person who built the head or was doing the cutting, like he would be best to do it safely.
Hmm.
Cropsey runs out. He's engulfed in flames, and he falls down a small incline into the nearby lake. And all the kids are like, "Oh shit, we gotta go!" But
Mm-hmm.
that's it. They don't like try to help him or anything.
Nope.
So 1 week later, at St. Catherine's Hospital, an orderly takes a new intern to see a man who's badly burnt, who's lucky to survive. As the orderly stands by the curtain to an oxygen tent, Cropsey's charred hand grabs the orderly, who screams in terror. And this is like the meanest orderly ever, right? He's like,
Yeah. He's like, you can't believe, like, dude, you gotta see his face, like, in real life. You won't believe how badly he's, like, scarred. It's like, you need to go, you need to come see him.
he's a freak. He's a monster.
Yeah.
You know, oh, you've only been here for 3 days. People here for like 2 months are like, they're like old people, and you're never gonna last. It's like, damn, dude, chill the fuck out. You know.
Yeah.
I wonder if he was like trying to haze the new guy.
Maybe. Yeah.
That was just
And then, yeah. That was such a random, like, I was like, why is everybody mean to this man who just got burned?
yeah.
Like, first, like, the kids, like, accidentally burned him in this prank, and then now the orderly's, like, making fun of him, and then bring everyone to go see him. It's, like, so messed up.
Yeah, for real. Poor Cropsey. He's done nothing wrong.
And it's, like, no wonder he, like, breaks out, or not breaks out, but, like, when he leaves, he starts going and killing Rampage.
Right. I mean, this is basically a good for her movie, but for
For him.
good for him. So 5 years later, Cropsy is released from the hospital, apparently very disfigured from the scorching episode. Oh, and I wanted to go back. The arm that grabs the orderly
Hmm.
is so nasty looking.
Yeah,
It's like charred but red and raw and bloody, and there's like pieces of skin hanging down from it.
yeah.
I'm sure that's not. Well, maybe I want to think that's not how real burn victims look,
Hmm.
but maybe it is. But it looked really good. Savini did a
Yeah,
great job there.
yeah. No wonder he's like, yeah.
Well,
All
because
the
he,
makeup effects in this movie is like really great.
yeah. And do you know a little bit of Savini's background at all?
Mm, Not besides just him doing a lot of horror movie
Yeah,
makeup. But,
he was in Vietnam. And he was in the
oh,
Vietnam War. I think he was a war photographer, if I'm remembering
okay.
correctly. I know for a fact he was in Vietnam. I think he was a war photographer, and he said that he got the ideas or the references for all like burn victims or
Mm,
like gouging or like how a cut looks from personal experience from having photographed soldiers in the war.
that's crazy. It's like
Yeah,
using real life as inspiration
yeah.
for his art.
Yeah, unfortunately, the real life, right? But Savini he's one of the happiest guys, and he's so cool. Everybody who's ever talked about him just talks about what a great guy he is. Unfortunately, just like within the past year, he was hit by a car.
Oh,
Like I think he was out biking or jogging or something. It was hit. It was a hit and run, and
oh,
but I think he's recovered now. But thankfully he's okay.
okay. I didn't
Um,
know about that.
yeah. 5 years later, Cropsy's released from the hospital, apparently very disfigured from the scorching episode. Cropsy walks the streets at night, dressed in all black clothing with a hat and hiding in the shadows so no one will get a clear look at his face. A sex worker was standing by the entrance to the city apartment. So Cropsy enters the sex worker's apartment, being careful to turn out the lights before he enters. As she is preparing, Cropsy gets close, and the terrified sex worker tells him to leave after seeing his disfigured face. We haven't seen it yet, but she's seen his disfigured face.
Hmm.
And Cropsy struggles with the sex worker, grabs a pair of scissors, and stabs her to death.
Hmm. And this is the part where I'm like, Cropsy, you are targeting the wrong people here. They're not the. She's not the. It's not her fault that you were burned. Go
Yeah,
after those guys and not this sex worker who's trying to make a living. Yeah, this is the part where like, oh fuck you, Cropsy. No.
yeah, right off the bat, like we were with you, we were rooting for you, Cropsy. We were all rooting for you.
uh,
Um, so several days later at Camp Stonewater, several of the campers are playing baseball. Cropsy is glimpsed crouching in the bushes, armed with a pair of garden shears, but he doesn't intervene. That evening in the cafeteria, one of the campers, Karen, tells the counselor Michelle that she likes another camper, Eddie, but she's a little frightened of him because of his macho nature. Now, is Eddie the one? Is he the one who comes on real strong and like is very rapey? I don't remember. I'm gonna have to put a pin in that.
yes, he is.
He
Yes,
is?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
He's the one in the pool scene.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
towards the middle of the movie.
So the next morning, another camper named Sally wakes up and goes to the shower. While showering, she hears a noise and screams, "Who's there?" She throws back the shower curtain and screams. Michelle, Karen, and the rest of the girls from her cabin run in and they see Alfred running away. Counselor Todd, played by Brian Matthews, stops Alfred and has a serious talk with him in his office. This is such bullshit. This boys will be boys thing.
Yeah, like that's like when I immediately thought of the Weinstein thing. Is like this dude Alfred is being a creep, sneaking a peek while this girl is showering, and then the woman who wants Alfred to like leave the camp. The character's name is Michelle. She's like, he needs to leave because he's being a creep, and then the guy Todd, I guess his her boyfriend was like defending him. It's like, no, no, he's just weird. Um, I'll deal with him. Let me, I'll talk to him about it. It's like kind of weird
Yeah,
that
it's so messed up. I mean, Alfred said that he just wanted to scare Sally and that people are always picking on him. What I was going to say was in the scene prior to this where Sally is taking a shower, The director said that, and I watched the director's commentary on the on the Scream Factory disc,
Mm,
and so the director Tony Malum, who's British, which was kind of a shock to me when I heard his voice.
mm,
He was like, "Yeah, we had like two women in this movie that we signed up, and we told them we were going to be complete like full frontal nudity." And when they signed on, they were like, "Yeah, no problem." The woman in this scene,
mhm.
Sally, played by Cara Glenn, he said that she had no problem. She got naked, and she took a shower, and it was no problem. But later on in the movie, when they're swimming out in the lake,
Yeah.
the woman who played that scene, even though that he says, even though she signed up and said, "Yeah, I'm fully fine with full frontal nudity," she still put up a fight or whatever. Like she was still like cautious, and he was just like, "Come on, lady, we've all seen this before." And it's like, "Fuck you, dude! You're not the
Ugh.
one who has to get naked in front of like the
Yeah.
whole male cast and then go in the water."
Yeah.
You know, I love horror movies and I love '80s movies, but like I don't miss this shit.
No.
You
Yeah.
know,
It's very
I
necessary.
hate this. Yeah, I don't
Gratuitous.
mind. I don't mind nudity in movies if it's necessary, or whatever. But it's just be sensitive. When I was on my previous episode, or in a previous episode, I was talking to Max Booth III, and he was talking about his movie that just came out a couple days ago called "We Need to Do Something," and he said that on their set they had an intimacy coordinator.
Mm,
So because I think there was two, yeah, the two girls have to kiss or make out or whatever, and the intimacy coordinator was the one who handled that relationship, and that person would go, the intimacy coordinator would go to one person like, "This is everything that's going to happen, are you okay with this?" Then go back to the other person and then go talk to the director about it, so work all that. And I just thought that that's like a great idea.
yeah. I've heard of intimacy coordinators and be on several productions, like with scenes, sex scenes between actors, that sometimes require them to be comfortable with being naked and having sex or fake sex on screen. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I,
it's a good thing that they're there to make everyone more comfortable.
yeah, I feel like there's one thing to have like a realistic sex scene or chemistry or whatever. No
Hmm.
movie is worth like a woman being assaulted for, or like feeling
Pressured,
uncomfortable. Yeah.
yeah,
So
pressured, showing everything. Yeah,
yeah, this movie, there's going to be a bunch of scenes like that. So sorry, but we're just getting it out of the way.
yeah.
So Alfred says that he just wanted to scare Sally and that people are always picking on him. Todd says that he knows how Alfred feels because 5 years ago, when Todd was a camper at a nearby summer camp, he and several of his friends were sent home from camp for a practical joke that went wrong. A little later, Glazer, played by Larry Joshua, who is Sally's brutish boyfriend, warns Alfred to stay away from his girl. So Glazer is the like rapey dude.
Yeah, he's the muscle dude.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So this guy Glazer is so funny because first of all he looks like 40 years old. He looks so much
Oh,
older than everybody else, and then every time he's standing around, he's like puffing out his chest,
yeah.
like comically puffing out his chest. It's like, dude, what are you doing? And I think like he's not even that tall, so it just looks like, I don't know, so
Yeah, he's like the
cartoonish.
same height as everyone else, and then trying to act tough and be intimidating. I will say, like the one scene I do like is like when he goes swims out to reach the girls like in the dock, and then the guys on the the land like shoots something at his butt, like a fake bullet, whatever, a pellet
Yeah,
at his butt, and everyone started laughing. They're like, "Oh, that's fun. That made me happy." Like,
yeah.
I laughed
The,
during
the,
that scene.
the bully gets his comeuppance.
Yeah, and one of the girls like pushes him onto the lake. Yeah, I thought that was fun.
Oh yeah, that's actually the next scene.
Okay.
So the campers are swimming and Glazer pushes Alfred off the dock into the water, and then Glazer, like you're saying, swims over to a dock where all the girls are,
Hmm.
and then one of Alfred's friends, Dave, played by Jason Alexander, jumps in and helps Alfred out because he cannot swim, and then they help him get revenge against Glazer Woodstock, played by Fisher Stevens, shoots Glazer in the butt with the air pistol while he's on a raft trying to woo Sally. And it's so funny, like you're saying, he's like got his chest out. Hey, ladies, you want to go for a
Yeah,
swim? And he's wearing the most revealing, like I guess,
shorts,
yeah, not even,
red
it's a
shorts.
speedo or something, isn't it? I don't know.
Yeah,
Um,
and she turns him down.
yeah, and I think I definitely think that was played for comic effect. It
Yeah,
has to be
yep,
because the way he's acting and he's just like his lips are pouted. Hey, it's pretty good.
yeah.
A moment of levity in an otherwise like pretty like serious movie. What I was gonna say is this movie, as compared to like Sleepaway Camp, which is
Mm.
another big summer camp movie,
Summer camp. Yeah.
and then like Friday the 13th, obviously being the most famous. These kids I actually liked,
Mm.
except for Glazer because he's a dickhead, and I think was it Alfred? He's a creep, but like
Hmm.
most of the other characters were pretty cool.
Yeah,
They're
they're
like
not like
supportive of their friends and all.
yeah, they're not like dickheads, or jerks ruining, everyone's lives, but they're easy to root for, I guess.
Yeah, in other movies you're like, God, I can't wait for Jason to get this guy or something,
Hmm.
and in this one you're like, fuck, you actually want them to survive, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And the other thing I noticed is that there are some similarities between this and Friday the 13th, but I think there's more dissimilarities than there are similarities. Specifically, like Jason has a purpose, right?
Hmm.
His purpose is to get revenge. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen Friday the 13th 50 years later or whatever. But he's trying to get. Oh, I'm sorry. In the first one, I'm talking about. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Okay. In the first one, uh, Jason's mom, Mrs. Voorhees, is trying to get the revenge on the people who actually killed, or she thinks killed her son. In this one, nobody at the camp is responsible for his death, so there's really not any motivation there for him.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, there's no final girl in this movie.
Yeah, I found that really interesting because in the movie, The Burning, there isn't really a specific protagonist that we're following. It's just all these group of people, and I'm like, who are we supposed to be like following? But yeah, it's pretty just all over the place in terms of that.
Yeah, in the last third of the movie, we kind of like switch. We get our final protagonist, which is
Yeah,
Todd, played by Brian Matthews, who is a
yeah,
hunk. Like when he
yeah,
gets into like his action scenes, he's a hunk.
yeah. And he looked at his credits and he starred in a lot of soap operas. I'm like, oh, it makes sense. Yeah, in his career,
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think Days of Our Lives or something.
So in the cabin that night, Cropsey is hanging around and spying on the campers when Alfred sees him at the window. But the other campers don't see anything. Glazer asks Fish to buy some condoms for his upcoming intimate time with Sally, while Dave and Woodstock play cards. This is kind of a gross scene,
Mm,
right? Because they're talking about like condoms or like vitamin E. I think
mm.
he needs that. It was kind of weird. It's
Yeah, I actually don't remember it that. I might have like glossed over that scene.
Yeah. I mean, it was pretty. Yeah, it's that like boys quote
Yeah, yeah,
unquote
talking
locker
the
room
camp.
talk shit.
Yeah.
In the cafeteria, the head counselor talks to Michelle, Todd, and the rest of the campers about a 3-day canoe trip to Devil's Creek, several miles downriver from the camp. And Todd once again lets Glazer get away with shit because Glazer is being an asshole here.
Hmm.
One thing I was going to ask you is, have you or do you, because you do a lot of hiking, right? I know that.
Yeah,
But did you ever go to sleepaway camp or like an actual like summer camp or anything like that?
I have never done that in my life.
Me neither. Me
Yeah, it's
neither.
kind of weird. Yeah, a weird thing, but you know, I
Is
watch
that
movies that or TV shows that have a lot of summer camps.
is that something you've wanted to do, or you've seen so many horror movies you're like fuck that?
I'm open to it, but like, I'm good. I like just staying at home.
You're a homebody,
Yeah,
other than when you go hiking.
yeah.
So my wife Hillary, her parents they did a lot of camping when they were younger. And then when Hillary was younger, they did a lot of camping as well. And they would go up to the boundary waters, which are the waters that divide the United States from Canada in Michigan.
Mm,
Or, I'm sorry, it's in Minnesota, I believe.
okay.
And what they would have to do is they would take 2 or 3 days to hike to the place that they were going to be camping
Staying at.
overnight. So
Okay.
they wanted to be as away from anybody else as possible. So like a 2 or 3 day camp or 2 or 3 day hike from any civilization,
Mm.
and then they would just be out there for like a week, and that seems fucking insane to me.
Yeah, it seems uncomfortable. Like I don't want to do that or be in the cold weather at night or in the hot weather in the mornings.
So yeah, you have to bring in everything that you're gonna need because there's no going back to the car for shit,
Yeah.
and so you don't want to carry it. It's just, man, it's so weird and not something that I look forward to. And so it seems like another world when I see these movies about being
Hmm.
away at camp. Although this is obviously a little different because they have basically everything
Yeah.
at camp, you know. So
Yeah.
I always look at it like, fuck that. I've seen enough horror movies. I don't need to go camping.
Yeah.
So
And also, like when there are like horror movies like the Blair Witch Project, that takes place in the woods, I don't get as scared. You know, it's like, oh, I'm never in the woods or camping. Like, I don't care about all this stuff that happens.
yeah, you're like, that's your fault. You shouldn't have
Yeah,
been there.
exactly. Although the Blair Witch Project is very scary, and that did, yeah,
Oh
give me
yeah, the
nightmares.
Blair Witch Project is one of the scariest movies had seen at the time. It's still pretty scary. I know people like to make fun of it, but it's scary.
Yeah.
So the next day, a large group of campers are out canoeing. There's a beautiful shot of a setting sun here. I really like that. I really like the atmosphere that they built, and the setting is beautiful. Like you
Hmm.
feel like you're there.
Yeah.
At night, around a campfire, Todd tells the story of Cropsy, the caretaker. He mentions the prank and that Cropsy survives in the woods, killing animals and eating them raw. Eddie jumps out in a mask and scares everyone, which is a dick move to do.
Hmm.
Later, after everyone has gone to sleep for the night, Eddie and Karen take a walk to a nearby small lake where they begin kissing. Quote unquote kissing.
Hmm.
Because Eddie's also an asshole as well.
Yeah, a lot of the guys in here are
Yeah.
assholes. Yeah, I was like, oh, this is. A lot of them wanted to like take advantage of the women in this movie, and it's kind of weird. Yeah. With.
It's like, it seems like all relationships, if we're to judge 70s and 80s women and men relationships based solely on horror movies,
Hmm.
women never want to have sex and men always have to force them to have sex.
Hmm.
And it's creepy. Like even in oh no, Halloween, I think
Yeah, Halloween's fine.
yeah, I think Halloween's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think anything problematic happens.
Yeah. Cool.
um,
Whew, I was worried about it. So Karen seems doubtful about wanting to have sex with Eddie, and he decides to skinny dip in the lake. When Karen joins him and remains unsure about his, whether, what his true intentions are, Eddie grows angry and Karen leaves. Well, he says what? Get the fuck out of here or something like that, right?
yeah, like they started kissing at first, and then he's like too forceful on her
Yeah.
and pushes him away, and it's like I thought this is what he wanted, and then I forgot what he says, but it's basically like, yeah, get the hell away from me.
When she gets back to shore, she finds her clothes scattered around the trees, and while looking for them, Karen is attacked and killed by Cropsy, who slashes her throat with a pair of garden shears.
Yeah. So in this scene when it was all unfolding, I'm like, oh yeah, Cropsy is gonna go after the guy for just being a jerk to her. And then when she starts walking away, trying to find her clothes, her missing clothes, which are like scattered around, um, I'm like, oh no, Cropsy, don't! She didn't do anything. She just experienced sexual harassment, and now you're gonna go after her and not the dude. And like, why are you doing this?
Why are you like this?
And it's at this point when I started taking notes, like that says Cropsy only kills the women in this movie? Question mark. And then because up until this point, only women have died. I don't think any men have died. And then I'm
Yeah.
like, is this what is this trying to say about Cropsy? Or
Yeah, it's like I think we're too early on.
yeah,
No, because
it's
this
like
has come
halfway
out.
through.
Yeah, but
Oh,
what I was gonna say is, after Friday the 13th came out, then we started to see that whole if you're a teenager who wants to have sex, you're gonna get killed, right? But that came out
1980.
so this came out the year after, and so now I think we're starting to see the beginning of that trope where if you're a teenager who wants to have sex, you're gonna die by the killer's hands. But in this case, you're right. Like Karen
The
is,
guy wanted, yeah, the guy wants to have sex. She doesn't. She's
yeah,
unsure.
that's fucked up. I didn't even think. And then spoiler alert, but like later on in the movie, he doesn't. Does he die, or is he on the raft?
He might, yeah, yeah, he's on the raft. Yeah,
Okay, cool. Because I was gonna
yeah,
say, if this fucker survives and Karen dies, I'd be like, fuck that.
yeah,
But this is a pretty cool death as well. The throat
yeah,
the
yeah,
throat slash.
yeah.
Like you
All the death
said,
scenes are really well made by,
yeah.
yeah, Savini.
There's even a death scene. Oh yeah, yeah. He's the famous death scene on the raft that we'll talk about when we get there.
Yeah.
Um, so the next morning, Todd and Michelle ask Eddie where Karen is, and he says that he doesn't know. Soon they learn that all the cases are missing, and Todd finally decides that the group needs to construct a makeshift raft to get back to their camp. Michelle and Todd, like Michelle is like, "Yo, where is Karen?" Like she is worried for her safety, you
Hmm.
know. And Eddie's like, "I don't fucking know. Like she didn't put out, so I told her to get the fuck away or something like that."
Yeah,
Todd is has this culture that he's allowing because he's one of the leaders or whatever in
yeah,
this camp of allowing women to get sexually assaulted.
hmm,
And I think part of the reason why Karen dies is on Todd because
mm,
she runs away because she was with Eddie, but if they'd kicked Eddie out, she wouldn't have to worry about it.
yeah.
So that's terrible. Like the real villain in this movie
It's
is
Todd.
the patriarchy
Yes, it's Todd. Well, yeah,
and
everyone, all the
represented by
men.
Todd, right?
Yeah.
It's fucking mind-boggling. Okay, so so they're gonna make the raft to get back to the camp. After helping cut down some small trees, the group manages to finish the raft. So Eddie, Woodstock, Fish, and two of the female campers, Marnie and Rhoda, leave on the raft to row back to camp. After paddling upriver for a few miles, they see one of their canoes and row toward it. But when they reach the canoe, and it's probably the most shocking and most violent scene in the movie,
Yeah,
and the best scene, I think.
yeah.
Cropsy is crouched inside waiting for them, and he leaps out onto the raft and, in a matter of seconds, slashes, chops, dismembers all five campers to death.
Yes. And that so I had no idea. I have no expectations going into this movie. And when that scene happened, I'm like, that was like amazing because usually in a lot of slasher movies, the kids split up, so they all just die one by one. Going along, going somewhere by themselves. But this is you have a group of people. That's when you're like, oh, there's safety in numbers. They're all going to be fine, and then they just all get killed
Yeah,
within seconds, and that was like that kind of blew my mind because like, oh, I've never seen that in a horror movie before.
yeah, that was
Yeah,
great because you're right. Like they're slashers because they slash away like one at a time at like this huge group, but not here. He
yeah.
kills everybody off at
He
once.
kills basically half the group in that one scene.
Yeah, and some of these kids were real cool that we liked.
Yeah, like
Um,
that guy
Woodstock,
Woodstock. Yeah,
yeah,
Fisher Stevens.
Fisher
Yeah, he
Stevens,
dies within that group. Was like, oh, okay, I guess he's dying here then.
and what's cool is that the director was actually playing Cropsy in this section, in this
Okay.
scene, because he said that the person who was doubling for Cropsy wasn't getting it right, and so like the iconic shot of the shears going up, that's the
Mhm.
director.
Okay.
So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
And then, but the actual thrust into the throat of not of Fisher Stevens, of I think it's Eddie.
Mm.
That was Savini.
Okay.
That was Tom Savini. And then we fade to red to the next scene. But what I was going to say here was, does this death, Eddie's death specifically, remind you of any other like famous death, specifically
How
done
did?
by Savini? Oh, he died with the garden shear to his throat and the blood
Okay.
spurting out.
I do not recall the.
So Friday the 13th Part One,
Okay.
when Kevin Bacon
Okay.
gets killed with the
The hook.
arrow through the back,
Okay.
or is it a knife through the back of the neck or whatever on the bed,
Yeah.
and that blood spurting out. Um, they Savini did the same trick where it was like a his actual head but a fake body from the neck
Hmm.
down, and that's what they did here. And Savini was just like, yeah, I just took the trick from that and I just did it here in a little bit different way.
Okay.
So that was kind of cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and there's this one lady who gets like slashed across the head with a
Yeah,
skull. I'm like, oh, that's kind of gnarly.
yeah, that was awesome. And then the fingers chopping off as
Oh
well.
yeah, Woodstocks. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was dude, that whole scene was really cool.
Yeah. Kind of like reminds me of the cycle shower scene because it's all these like really fast cuts, but you actually see the violence in each of those cuts.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
the shower scene, but 20 years later or whatever.
Yeah. With like blood and violence.
Yeah, the way we like it. That evening, unaware of the massacre on the raft, Todd and the others wait for help to arrive. Glazer and Sally go off in a sleeping bag for a remote part of the wood. Oh, I think this was the scene that I was talking about. Where Glazer and Sally go off in a sleeping bag for a remote part of the woods for quote unquote sex. This is where she says, "That's all. Trust
Yeah.
me, baby." Like she was frustrated because he was a
Yeah.
one-minute man. Despite the unsatisfying moments of intimacy, they decide to stay for another day, for another round or another night or something.
Hmm.
Glazer goes back to the main campsite to get matches to light a fire. While he is gone, Cropsy attacks Sally. Do you remember how she dies here? Because I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, it's some more shears going through the throats, I think, or
So
like the chest.
yeah, there's a lot of shears to the throat here.
Yeah, but it's still very effective when
Yeah,
it happens.
yeah. Um, Glazer gets the matches, and Alfred gets out of his sleeping bag to follow him and to watch him and Sally have sex. Um, Glazer returns to the sleeping bag to find Sally dead, and then he is killed by Cropsy, who impales him by his neck onto a tree with the shears.
Yeah, which reminds me of like the Halloween death scene with the knife going through
Yeah, that's a great kill.
the body and then sticking to the other side. Yeah.
So I was looking at the making of with Savini.
Hmm.
By the way, how did you see that? Did you rent it or did you have
Yeah, I
the
watch it
movie
streaming
streaming?
online.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
cool. That's the thing about streams is like streaming. It's like you don't get all the special features
Behind
and
the
all that shit,
scenes.
right? But
Yeah.
there was a behind the scenes with Savini, and they were talking about that specific scene. How they did it was there were two assistants on either side of Glazer,
Hmm.
and they were holding these like 2x4 pieces of wood, and so Glazer was basically on his hands holding himself up so that he'd be floating.
Hmm.
So when they'd be shooting him, it looked like he was off the ground.
Yeah.
And then the shears, they just rounded them. They
Hmm.
And then at the very end they welded two tips of the shears. So that's what we see behind him when it hits
Hmm.
the tree.
Yeah.
It's like really low budget, like
But
gory
creative.
special effects. Yeah, very
Yeah.
creative.
Yeah.
Like nowadays, they probably would have done that with CGI, and there would have been like this huge like blood effect, and it would have looked fake.
Yeah.
But I love this.
Yeah, that was a good death scene for him. Yeah.
Alfred runs back to the campsite to tell Todd that Glazer is dead, and the man with the horrible face did it. Todd reluctantly follows Alfred back to the site where they find the body of Glazer and Sally. Cropsy jumps out from behind a tree and swipes at Todd with the shears, nicking him in his forehead. I think it was more than a nick. It was like it looked like it was enough to knock him out, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That was pretty gnarly looking too.
Hmm.
Alfred screams and runs away into the woods with Cropsy in pursuit. Todd wakes up and stumbles off into the woods. The next day, the campers see the raft return as it floats down towards them. Michelle swims out to the raft and finds various body parts of the campers on the raft, including the dead and mutilated Woodstock. And we fade to red again. I really like the scene because like she swims up to it and she just like grabs up on it and just like grabs disfigured
This
arm, and she's like,
yeah.
ah, and then you could tell like the director wanted her to get some blood on her because she like grabs it and like smears
Uh,
the blood on her. It's like, okay, lady,
yeah, yeah.
not the
And then
best
the
thing.
and then the body like goes on top of her in the
Yeah,
water.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And the only scene where Holly Hunter has a line where she's like shouts to one of the characters. I think Todd's character across the river.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna ask. I had to, like I said, I don't know. I know the name. I couldn't put a face to the name, so I had to Google like
Hmm.
Holly Hunter and the birding to see which part was her, and it came up. So, and she only
Yeah,
had that one line, or one or two lines, or whatever.
yeah. She's like it's definitely like a blink or miss it role because I was like I know who she is, but I still didn't know that she was in the movie until I looked at the casting list. I was like, wait, Holly Hunter, like who is she in this movie?
Yeah,
And she's just one of like those background campers. And
yeah. I
that
think in the trivia on IMDb, it said something like some magazine asked her about it, and she was like, "Yeah, listen, like I got paid more than I'd ever gotten paid for anything in my entire life up to that point. Like I was able to pay my rent and I didn't have to worry about money for a little bit. And I was basically like a glorified extra,
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
But
like
she
they're
got her SAG card, so she was happy.
oh good, yeah. They all have to start somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, The Burning is her like first credited role.
Todd returns to the camp and tells Michelle and the six remaining campers, Barbara, Tiger, Sophie, Diane, Alan, and Dave, to row back to the camp to get help while he goes off to find Alfred, who may still be alive. Todd grabs an axe and goes looking for Alfred, who's hiding in the woods from Cropsey, who's still hounding him. The campers on the raft return to Camp Stonewater, and Michelle warns the supervisor, Jeff, to rescue Todd and Alfred, who's still out there. Jeff and Michelle jump in a motorboat and head downriver towards Devil's Creek. Meanwhile, Alfred is grabbed by Cropsey and bound and gagged inside a building which looks like an old copper mine. So one thing that was funny here that was I heard in the director's commentary and also in the Savini doc afterwards, they were actually supposed to shoot inside of a cave,
Oh,
but they found two caves. One cave was full of bats, and then they didn't want to fuck with that. And then a second cave that they were going to shoot in, they had like set up some lights and stuff like that. And the next day they came and they saw that there had been a cave in, and all the lights were like covered in boulders and stuff
wow.
like that. So they're like, okay, we're not going to shoot in caves anymore. We're going to shoot in this abandoned mine shaft, which is maybe safer. But what the director said was that the mine shaft actually fucked him up, and he was because it was so dusty in there,
Hmm.
full of like mine dust. I don't know whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
He was coughing for 2 months after it because he
Oh,
just
that's
had all
terrible.
that shit in his lungs. You know.
Yeah. It
Um,
reminded me of the like a set from like My Bloody Valentine. It's like, oh, they're in this different, completely different setting now, which it's actually pretty like a cool use of that setting. Like,
yeah, because
really unique.
you're so used to like trees
And beach, yeah, and
and the
water,
cabin, and yeah, so to kind of get a change of pace here is kind of cool.
yeah,
And I love My Bloody Valentine, by the way.
it's fine.
It's so good. Did you say it's fine?
It's fine.
Oh my god! You're talking about the remake, right?
Well, the original.
Stanley. Oh my god! I'm gonna. God. You're lucky we're not here to talk about My Bloody Valentine. All right. So Todd, having heard Alfred's screams, gets to the mine shaft and goes inside after finding a dead Karen. This was so dumb here. Did you notice anything weird about this?
It was like a still photograph of Karen
Yeah,
rather than footage.
yeah. And the commentary, the director was like, "We didn't do this. The editor and the Weinstein's did this because they wanted more gore,
Hmm.
more kills in the movie." But it's so dumb. It looks so out of place.
Yeah, because like when Karen that the body appears, I'm like, who's this person? I don't know who this like who
Right.
she's supposed to be. Um, yeah, because she, her when she dies, like we just forget about her like halfway through the movie, and then
Yeah, it was unnecessary and kind of like it was beneath them, really.
yeah,
But whatever,
it
it
didn't need
happened.
to be there. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely didn't. So Cropsy pins Alfred's left arm to a wall with the shears and goes after Todd with a flamethrower, which is really cool. I like that he changes weapons a lot.
Yeah. Well, it's there because it's like a burning device, which he,
Ah, look at
you
you,
know,
Stanley. Look at you.
so it's like kind of contrived. It's like, oh, okay, he has a burner, like a flamethrower now, maybe to be used against him later. That's
Like,
the thoughts that are going in my head when I watch like slasher movie, or it's
yeah.
just any movie.
You're like, wait a minute. That's how he got hurt. So Todd enters the area near a workshop and sees Cropsy, whose horribly burned face is finally seen, and he's holding a flamethrower. This is such a great design on
Hmm.
this. And Savini said that it took 3 days to make, and it was
Okay.
kind of like it was like three applications. Like first, like they put on the false teeth,
Mm.
and then they put on something else, and finally, like this stretched, like burn mask.
Yeah.
It looked really nasty.
Yeah.
You know who
Is
it reminds me of? Sorry to interrupt you, but we both play this game called Dead by Daylight. Do you know who? Is there any of the killers in Dead by Daylight that this face reminds you of?
the trapper?
No, Hillbilly.
Oh,
Have you
I
ever?
don't.
You haven't seen his
I
face up close and
Yeah,
personal?
like up close. Yeah, like the person that reminds me of most was the character from Hellraiser, like one of the other Cenobites.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah, the one
the
with the teeth.
Chatterer,
Yeah,
Chatter or something like that. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh man, we gotta play Dead by Daylight again
yeah.
soon. All right.
And up until this point, like we haven't seen the Cropsy's face, so they're just like saving this shot, like at the very last moment.
Yeah, which is cool, and it's
Yeah,
shocking. You know,
yeah.
uh, what the director said was that they actually shot a lot more scenes with Cropsy in it,
Hmm.
like killing other people in New York or wherever, or in the camp. But that he felt cutting that all out and just leaving the minimum would leave the more lasting effect. And I think he was right.
Like Jaws
Yeah, like
with the shark.
exactly, exactly. So a flashback shows that Todd was one of the five campers who was responsible for the prank. This is so funny because they make it seem like this is this huge revelation
Hmm.
that nobody ever could have caught. And it's like, dude, you said his name in the beginning. Like they're like, it's Todd. Later on, he says that 5 years ago he was almost
Mm.
kicked out for a prank. You know, I don't know.
The clues are there.
The clues are there. I mean, I feel like they're hitting you in the head with it, but okay.
Yeah, I wasn't actually paying attention like at the beginning when they were saying their names. So like when Todd is introduced again 5 years later, I didn't put the two
Yeah.
together. Um, but like I'm like, surely some of these people have something to do with a prank because they're all older now and all that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, this is no like big reveal. This isn't like the reveal of Mrs. Voorhees, you know, and even that was
yeah,
pretty telegraphed. But it's still it's good in
yeah.
its own ways. So Cropsy turns off the flamethrower, and Todd hears Alfred scream again. Cropsy reappears again in the shed and turns back on the flamethrower and tries to set Todd on fire while he swings at the maniac with the axe. So as Cropsy is swinging the flames around, Alfred frees himself and stabs Cropsy in the back with the garden shears. At the same time, Michelle and Jeff arrive at the campsite where she waves down a police helicopter that just happens to be flying above them. And it arrives and disembarks a few policemen who advance into the woods. Back at the mine, Todd and Alfred begin to walk out of the mine when Cropsy revives and attacks Alfred. Alfred moves out of the way as Todd swings the axe, hitting Cropsy in the face and pinning him to the support pillar. Alfred grabs Cropsy's modified flamethrower and sets him afire. Now relieved that Cropsy is finally dead, Alfred and Todd walk out of the mine shaft while the standing up body of Cropsy continues to burn. And there's a great final scene of Cropsy burning against the wooden pillar. In the final scene, the story of Cropsy and his legend is being told around a campfire.
Yeah. So I would like to say like the third act of this movie when Cropsy was chasing Alfred and then Todd is trying to free Alfred. That chase around the woods was like pretty boring to me. You know,
Yeah.
like this is the part where I like started to lose interest. Like I was like not interested. Like I was kind of bored to be honest throughout the movie, and then like this part, like okay, this is kind of dragging. Like come on, just like get with it. You know, go to the finish line already because that the chase scene in the woods kind of lacked suspense and thrills in my opinion. And by the time they were in the cold mine, I'm like, okay, this is cool, but
Well, do you think it's possibly because all the characters that we were kind of rooting for are dead already? You know, like Alfred is the creep who was like peeking on somebody having sex, and also
yeah.
earlier in the movie, like peeking on the girl taking a
Oh
shower.
yeah,
So why do I
yeah.
care if this guy lives or dies?
Actually, like Alfred grew on me a little bit. Like even though, like, because he says that everyone picks on him. I was like, okay, I mean, whatever.
Everybody picks on him, so he gets to
No,
peek on a
no, no,
girl.
no.
Wow, you heard it
I'm
here
not saying that.
first.
I'm not
Stanley
saying that.
approves of, of peeping toms.
No, but I don't, um, I don't find him unsympathetic. You know,
Okay.
so I just didn't care about Todd. You know, who was chasing after him. I would have rather had Michelle, like his girlfriend. You know, be part of the finale.
Yeah, that would have been a better choice, I think, because
Yeah,
the
she's
women
like a
that.
better actress. You know, and she has like a lot of like presence to her, which we don't really get. At the end of the movie, she's sort of like calling out their names, and that's all. That's all she does. Like finding out where they are.
Yeah, women aren't given much to do in this movie
Yeah,
except die
because
and yell
yeah,
at
like you
people.
said, they don't. There's like no final girl, which is interesting. But I mean, Todd isn't that interesting as a character to follow during the climax of this movie.
Yeah, so that's the movie. And so, what were your general thoughts on The Burning?
Yeah, so I could agree with you. Like how I found this like marginally better than Friday the 13th. I'm not a huge fan of that movie in the first place. I haven't seen all of them, but I remember the first Friday the 13th like really just like bored me to death. Like I'm like, oh, this is a lot more boring than I thought, considering that this is like one of the most influential slasher movies, right?
Yeah,
Um, and I had like the same bored feeling watching The Burning. I was like, maybe like the first like 10, 15 minutes were interesting, but then it's just like we just see these kids like at summer camp having fun and then like having sex and all that. And there weren't that really many death scenes. I know like I read somewhere like that they were trying to have like one death scene every 10 minutes, but it didn't really feel like that because it took a while for like Cropsy to actually murder somebody in the camp for the first time.
yeah,
Yeah, and like by the time when they're like in the third act, when everyone finds out, oh, people are dying and everyone's freaking out, I'm like, I'm losing interest. I'm not like I'm barely paying attention to this.
yeah. That's funny. I didn't know that I didn't see that about one death every 10 minutes. But like in a horror movie, in a slasher anyway, that makes sense.
Yeah, because they want to establish that formula that I think that Halloween and Friday the 13th did already in the past. Um, just copy that formula in order to make this like a successful movie.
Yeah. So one of the things that I kind of found interesting was that according to Savini, um, the Weinstein's got into like a pretty big fight with the director, and at the end of the film, they, if I'm reading, if I remember correctly, kicked him out of the movie making process, and they wanted Savini to shoot another ending.
Hmm.
I don't know if that actually happened, but I do know that the director was not allowed in the editing room because of the Weinsteins. But Savini was in the editing room and helped Jack Shoulder cut the clips of the kill scenes.
Okay,
So I thought that,
that's interesting.
yeah, Savini is a fucking savant, man. He does everything. He even
Yeah,
directed. You know?
yeah, and the Weinstein, even Harvey Weinstein has the what do you call that? The tendency to cut and control like a lot of the final cut of movies.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, it happened even way early in their careers, that he's like a controlling person of trying to, oh, I don't want the director to have final cut. I'm going to do what I want.
Yeah, I'm reading this series of books. It's Taking Shape and Taking Shape 2, which is basically the making of all the Halloween movies.
Mm-hmm.
So Taking Shape 1 is the making of every single movie up until Halloween 2018, all the behind the scenes stuff. And then Taking Shape 2 is all the unmade scripts, of
Okay.
Halloween. But
Wow.
in Taking Shape 1, yeah, they're like each one is like 600 pages long. But in it for a while, like after Halloween 5, I believe, um, the rights went, or maybe it was 4, I don't remember, but at one point, um, the rights were bought by Miramax. Like they went on a 50-50 deal
Mm.
with the producer of Halloween, and so he was really, really controlling and manipulative as they went about making those sequels. So I could
Mm.
just uh, imagine just working for a person like that. It's just
Yeah.
had to be
Like the
tough.
nickname that I heard was given to Harvey Weinstein was Edward Scissorhands because he would just like
Cut
cut everything.
shit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh, it kind
yeah,
of surprised me like how like the Burning really got like a lot of love like later in the years. And I'm like, oh, this is like a like a slasher movie that people actually like. So that's why it's one of the biggest reasons why I want to see this movie
yeah.
because I want to see like what people are talking about. And I'm like, but this is basically like a lot of other slasher movies. I don't think it's besides the one great scene where Popsy kills like five of those teens at
Yeah.
once, which is like amazing. Everything else is kind of like just by the numbers and formulaic. Uh,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think when we've seen as many horror movies as you and I have, like we're kind of jaded to it.
yeah,
So I'm sure, like if we had seen this when it came out or earlier in our lives before we saw all the rest of the movies, we would be like, yeah, The Burning is like one of the best, and it's still because Friday the 13th was so successful and Sleepaway Camp
mhm,
was so successful. There were a lot of movies that were made that were very derivative of it, and the quality was very bad. So is so The Burning is still one of the better ones out there. But
yeah,
that being said, it is still formulaic, and is still kind of slogs in the middle. The beginning was cool, the middle raft scene was cool, and the final scene
cave
in
or
the
whatever
cave was cool. Yeah, or not the cave, the
the
mine
cult mine.
was
Yeah,
cool. But everything else in between that, it's just
it's
characters
filler. It's
getting.
filler.
Yeah, it's filler. It's definitely filler.
Yeah.
So so with that being said, what we do here, Stanley, is we rate movies out of 5 upside down crosses. So, what would you give? How many upside down crosses would you give The Burning?
I would give the Burning 2.5
Two
upside
and a
down
half
crosses.
upside down crosses. Okay,
Yeah, so like right in the middle,
right in
basically.
the middle. Yeah, that's fairly decent. I would have to disagree with you there just slightly. I'll say maybe I'll give it 3 stars because I still had fun watching it. It is like one of those legendary movies. Cropsy is a great killer. Like I
Mhm.
know we see his head be like stuck to a pile or a pillar or whatever with that axe.
Axe.
Yeah, but I really wish that they had made a part. It's tough, right? Because
Yeah.
once you start making sequels, then that's when the franchise suffers, and it's just the law of diminishing returns. So I respect that they didn't make a part 2. So I
Mhm.
think that's why I'm going to give it more. Yeah, a little bit of me would have liked the part 2 because I think there was some more story to it, but at the same time, they did 10 Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Do you think they didn't make any sequels to the Burning because it wasn't as successful in the box office as Friday the 13th?
I think the director said there was at one point talk about making a sequel, but he wasn't interested in it, and the Weinsteins never followed up.
Mm.
And I think he said that they made their money back in the United
Yeah, they did.
States, and then they started selling the world rights, and that's where they
Hmm.
made a lot of their money. So I think it was successful, and the Weinstein's aren't ones to like turn down money because
Exactly.
they do like at the height of their what was it Dimension.
Mm.
At the height of Dimension, they were doing straight to video of everything, like Children of the Corn
Yeah.
and The Crow, and what's the other one? Oh, Hellraiser. Like
Yeah.
they made they tons of movies for that for those series, and just because they could get some money out of it. So I'm sure I don't know why they didn't make a sequel to it, but I'm kind of happy they didn't.
Yeah.
So Stanley, what we do here, I will now absolve you of your horror movie sin. And in order to get this to be fully absolved, I will suggest to you three horror movies, and you can either watch them or not. If you don't watch them, you'll probably burn in the fiery pits of hell. And that's not
Okay.
my fault, that's your own fault. And these three movies are Funhouse from 1981, directed by
Mm.
Toby Hooper. And
Okay.
this has another disfigured monster in it, like as the killer. Madman from 1981, which we talked about earlier, directed by Joe Giannone, and Alone in the Dark from 1982, directed by the editor of this movie, Jack Shoulder.
Okay.
So those three movies are kind of have a lot of the same themes and are very similar to The Burning from 1981. I think you'd really like it.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for recommending me these. I'm gonna take a look at them.
All right, Stanley, thank you so much for being on the show. Would you like to give out your social so people can follow you?
Sure. I am at Movie Whiz Guy on Instagram. So it's Movie Wiz, WIZGUY. So that's the only social platform that I am most active in right now. So
Okay.
um, yeah, I just post a lot of stories about food
Yeah, you're a
and
foodie.
movies. And movies.
And
That's right.
hiking and hiking.
Yeah.
So Stanley posts some of the like best looking food ever, and I don't
Oh,
know how he does it because he's skinny as all get out. And then also he posts like really like thought provoking stuff on movies, and he takes like the most beautiful hikes. So you get like three venues of so you should definitely follow him.
yeah.
And so I am. And if you want to follow me, or the show, you can follow me on Twitter at MHC Pod, like My Horror Confessional Pod. You can follow me on Instagram at My Horror Confessional. The email for the show is myhorrorconfessional@gmail.com. I am Miguel Myers ATX on Twitter and Instagram. The music that you hear is by Taylor Fox. You can follow her on Instagram at the Taylor Fox. And the artwork was done by Captain Mikey, previous guest of the show. And you can follow him on Instagram at Captain_Mikey_art. Thanks so much for listening. We'll talk to you next time.